You know, one of the first foods I always bring up when talking about reheating risks is spinach. It surprises a lot of people because spinach has this reputation: healthy, full of iron, good for your heart. And that's true, but only when it's eaten fresh or freshly cooked. When it sits too long, especially if it's been cooked and then reheated, it can actually turn into something that's not so kind to your body. For older adults, especially those with sensitive digestion or low stomach acid, reheated spinach can be rough. The nitrates in spinach can convert into nitrites when it's heated again. And for a body that doesn't process toxins as efficiently as it once did, those nitrites might cause symptoms like nausea, dizziness, even headaches or weakness. It's not that spinach itself is the enemy, it's just that your body now needs a bit more thoughtfulness in how you handle even the healthy stuff. I've met plenty of folks who felt something was off, but never thought the spinach was the cause. So if you've ever had a leftover spinach dish and then felt a little off afterward, well, you're not imagining it. Your body is wiser now, more sensitive, and it's asking for a little extra care. Back when I was still working at the community clinic in Oregon, there was a woman named Mary, 72, from Eugene. Spry, sharp, one of those folks who still did their own gardening and loved her Sunday paper. She was proud of eating healthy, and one of her favorite dishes was a spinach and egg scramble. She'd make a batch, eat half, and save the rest for breakfast the next morning. Well, one morning she reheated it quickly in the microwave and had it with toast. Within a couple of hours she felt weak and dizzy, a little nauseous too. She brushed it off at first, and maybe the weather, she thought, but when it happened a second time, she came in to see me. We talked through her meals, medications, everything. And the only constant was that reheated spinach. I explained how even the healthiest foods can act differently once they've been through a second round of heat, especially for someone with a more sensitive system. She was stunned. "Spinach?" she asked. "But I thought that was the good stuff." "It is. It just needs to be eaten fresh." Mary started cooking smaller portions, enough for one meal, and if she ever had extra, she added it cold into a salad or sandwich later, but no more reheating. She told me a week later she felt steadier, more like herself, and Mary's not alone. I've had 3 or 4 similar stories just in the last year. Reheated spinach isn't poison, but it can trip up a body that's already managing more than its fair share. What usually helps is simply adjusting the way you cook and store it. If you're making something with spinach, a soup, an omelette, a casserole, aim to make just enough to eat fresh. If there are leftovers, try not to reheat them. Instead, add them cold to another meal, or if in doubt, toss them. I always say, when in doubt, throw it out, especially with leafy greens. This is one of the simplest shifts, but it makes a big difference. Your body doesn't need the extra burden, and your meals can still be delicious and nourishing without the reheat risk. Sometimes caring for your health isn't about big changes. It's about quiet, respectful choices. Choosing not to reheat. Spinach might seem small, but it's a way of listening to your body's whispers. You deserve to feel steady and strong after you eat, and you deserve to trust that your food is working with you, not against you. Every small act of care adds up, and your body notices. It always does. Let's talk about something that's on almost every table: potatoes. Now, I know potatoes are a comfort food for many. Mashed, baked, roasted, they're familiar, filling, and just plain good. But there's a small detail most people overlook. Once you've cooked potatoes and they've cooled down, especially if they've been sitting out or in the fridge for a while, they become a little tricky for your system. And reheating them can make that even worse. Here's why that matters more after 60. As we age, our digestive system tends to slow down a bit. That means it takes longer to process certain types of starches, like the ones in potatoes. When you reheat cooked potatoes, especially in the microwave, those starches change form again and may not break down as smoothly in your gut. That can lead to bloating, discomfort, and in some cases even mild food poisoning if the potatoes weren't stored properly. You see, cooked potatoes are a perfect place for bacteria like Clostridium botulinum to grow if they're left at room temperature too long. And the thing is, these changes aren't something you can see or smell. So you might be thinking the potatoes are just fine, but your body feels the difference, especially if your immune system is a little more sensitive now, or if you have underlying issues like IBS, GERD, or just a sensitive stomach. One patient I'll never forget was Robert, 78, from Lubbock, Texas. Retired truck driver, lived alone, always polite and kind. He loved making mashed potatoes from scratch. He'd make a big pot, eat some, and keep the rest in a plastic container in the fridge. A couple of days later, he'd reheat them in the microwave for lunch or dinner. Well, after one of those meals, he started feeling a tight, uncomfortable feeling in his stomach. Then came nausea, and by the next morning he had diarrhea and fatigue. It wasn't dramatic, but it was enough to make him come in. We went over everything: meds, new foods, water. But once we talked about the mashed potatoes, it clicked. He asked how long he usually kept them and how he reheated them. When I explained the bacterial risks and how reheated starches can ferment in the gut, his eyes widened. "I never would have thought potatoes could cause this," he said. After that visit, Robert changed his habits. He started cooking smaller amounts, just enough for one meal. And if he had leftovers, he made sure they went into a glass container, were chilled right away, and tossed after 24 hours. But more importantly, he stopped reheating them altogether. He told me he actually started enjoying his meals more because he wasn't worrying about how he'd feel afterward. And you know what? He wasn't alone. I've had others, like Lorraine, 84, from Boise, say similar things. She used to make big casseroles with leftover baked potatoes, and she kept having stomach upsets. Now she simply eats what she cooks the same day, and she says it's made a world of difference. One of the easiest ways to avoid this issue is just to cook what you need for one meal. I know it feels efficient to make a big batch and save time, but your body will thank you for freshness. If you do have leftover potatoes, cool them right away and eat them cold the next day. Maybe sliced into a salad or mixed with yogurt or herbs, but skip the reheating part. And if you're unsure how long they've been sitting in the fridge, better to be safe and toss them. This small habit protects your digestion and keeps your energy more stable. It's one of those tiny things that adds up in a big way. There's a kind of quiet strength in making choices that put your well-being first. Choosing not to reheat potatoes might feel like a small detail, but it's one of those changes that gives you more comfort in your day. You deserve to feel well after your meals. You deserve to trust what's on your plate. When you care for your body like this, with attention, patience, and kindness, it notices, and it thanks you in return. Now here's one that surprises nearly everyone I talk to: rice. It's such a staple in so many homes. Easy to make, goes with everything, and feels like a safe, gentle food. But reheated rice, that's where things get a little tricky, especially for older adults. And most people have no idea just how risky it can be if handled the wrong way. Here's the thing. Rice can carry spores of a bacteria called Bacillus cereus. These spores can survive cooking. They're sneaky. You can't see them, taste them, or smell them. But if cooked rice is left sitting out too long before being stored, or if it's not cooled and reheated properly, those spores wake up and grow into bacteria that produce toxins. And those toxins don't get destroyed just by reheating. That means even freshly warmed up rice can make you feel sick if it wasn't stored the right way. For seniors, this matters a lot more than it might have 30 years ago. Your body may not respond as quickly or strongly to foodborne threats as it once did. So while a younger person might just feel a little queasy, an older adult might end up with real food poisoning, nausea, vomiting, cramps, fatigue. And sometimes you don't even realize it was the rice from the night before that caused it. I remember Grace, 81, from Santa Rosa, California. She was living independently and proud of it. Every Sunday, she'd make a pot of rice in her old rice cooker, keep it in the pot overnight, and then scoop out servings for lunch during the week. "I just hit the reheat button," she told me. Never had a problem until I did. She came in after a few days of feeling off. Nothing dramatic, just low energy, some nausea that wouldn't go away, and an upset stomach that left her eating crackers for dinner. We went over her meds, hydration, blood pressure. Everything looked fine. Then I asked about meals. When she described her rice routine, I paused. "Do you refrigerate it right away?" I asked. She blinked. "No, I just leave it in the cooker." That was the clue. I explained how rice needs to be cooled within an hour of cooking, then stored in the fridge in a shallow container. and ideally eaten within 24 hours. Grace had no idea. She assumed the warm setting on the cooker kept it safe. But those spores? They don't care about warm, they multiply. Grace changed her routine after that. She started making just enough rice for a day or two and storing it properly. She told me later, "It feels like such a small shift, but I honestly feel better, more steady." And she wasn't alone. I've heard the same from folks like Harold, 74, from Kentucky, who used to keep a big rice bowl in his fridge all week and kept getting what he called mystery stomach bugs. Once he changed how he stored and used rice, those bugs disappeared. One of the simplest things you can do is treat rice like milk, with caution. If you cook it, cool it right away. Store it in the fridge in a shallow, covered dish. Eat it within a day, maybe 2 at most, and never leave it sitting out even for a couple of hours. If it's been out, toss it. If it smells off, toss it. And if you do reheat it, only do so once, making sure it's steaming hot all the way through. It may sound strict, but these small kitchen habits make a real difference, especially when your digestion isn't what it used to be. There's strength in knowing how to protect your well-being with small, quiet choices. Keeping your rice safe isn't about fear, it's about trust. Trust in your body, trust in your wisdom. You've come this far with care and resilience, and now your meals can reflect that too. Every spoonful can be a step toward feeling good, steady, and strong. You've earned that peace of mind. Now let's turn to something soothing, a chicken broth. It's often the first thing we turn to when we're feeling under the weather or just need something light and comforting. But here's the part many people miss. Chicken broth, if not reheated properly, can turn from comfort food into a risk. Especially as we get older, that warm cup needs to be more than just warm. It needs to be hot all the way through. The reason is bacteria. Once broth has been cooked and then cooled, it becomes a perfect breeding ground for bacterial growth, particularly if it sat too long at room temperature or wasn't stored properly. Even in the fridge, bacteria can slowly multiply if the broth isn't brought back to a proper temperature when reheated. And unfortunately, a lukewarm cup won't do the job. For older adults whose immune defenses might not be as strong as they once were, these little lapses in kitchen routine can lead to nausea, upset stomach, or even infection. It's not about scaring anyone, it's about knowing how the body changes. As we age, we may not notice the signs of bad food as quickly. We may also take medications that affect digestion or have slower metabolism that makes clearing out these harmful bacteria harder. What used to be fine when we were 40 just isn't the same at 70 or 80. I'll never forget Harold, 75, from Grand Rapids, Michigan. He's a retired music teacher, lived alone, cooked for himself most days. One winter, he got into the habit of keeping a pot of homemade chicken broth in his fridge. "I like sipping it at night," he told me. "It helps me wind down." But he didn't always reheat it fully. Sometimes he'd pour a cup straight from the fridge, warm it in the microwave for 30 seconds, and drink it while it was still barely warm. "Didn't feel like waiting," he said with a chuckle. At first, it didn't seem to be a problem. But after a few weeks, Harold started having stomach cramps and a general sense of unease after those evening cups. He thought maybe it was something in his diet. When he mentioned it to me during a checkup, I asked how he stored and reheated his broth. That's when the story came out. I explained to him that broth should be brought to a boil before drinking, especially when it's been stored. That light warm-up wasn't enough to kill potential bacteria. He looked surprised, even a little embarrassed. "I thought I was being healthy," he said, "but being healthy also means being careful." Harold changed his habit immediately. He now heats his broth in a saucepan until it bubbles, and then lets it cool just enough to sip safely. "It takes an extra 5 minutes," he told me later, "but it's worth it not to feel off after drinking something that's supposed to help." And then there's Diane, 80, from Phoenix. She'd been drinking cold broth as a snack, thinking it was cleaner and less harsh on her stomach. But her digestion disagreed. We talked about it, and once she switched to reheating until hot, the discomfort vanished. One of the simplest ways to protect yourself is to reheat broth until it's truly hot. Not just warm to the touch, but steaming. If it's in the fridge, pour out just what you need into a small pot and heat it until it boils. Let it cool slightly so it's safe to drink, But don't skip that step. If you're using a microwave, heat it in short bursts, stirring in between, until it's evenly hot all the way through. This one step makes your body's job easier. It won't have to fight off bacteria that should have been killed in the pot. There's something deeply calming about a hot cup of broth on a quiet evening. Let it be what it's meant to be. Comfort, not concern. You deserve to feel safe with what you eat and drink. You've cared for others your whole life. Now let this be your moment to care for yourself in small, powerful ways. Warm broth, well heated, is one of those ways. Let's talk about something that looks innocent but can cause a lot of discomfort if not handled right: broccoli and cauliflower. These two vegetables are full of nutrients and fiber, and they're great for older adults in so many ways. But when they're eaten cold or undercooked, they can turn your stomach into a battlefield. The issue isn't the vegetables themselves, it's how our bodies process them as we age. Broccoli and cauliflower belong to a family of vegetables called cruciferous. They're rich in compounds that help your body detoxify and support your immune system. But they also contain sulfur-rich molecules and complex fibers that can be difficult to digest if they're raw or even just cold from the fridge. For seniors, whose digestive systems might be slower or more sensitive, that can mean bloating, gas, cramping, all the things you try to avoid when planning a healthy meal. And here's something many people don't realize. When you cook these vegetables, let them cool and then eat them cold, it can still cause problems. Reheating them until they're soft and warm again helps break down those tougher fibers and makes the nutrients more accessible, and the experience much gentler on your stomach. One woman I worked with, Charlotte, 68, from Scottsdale, Arizona, was doing all the right things. She had started eating more vegetables after her doctor encouraged her to lower her cholesterol and boost her energy. Every Sunday, she'd roast a big batch of broccoli and cauliflower, then keep it in containers for the week. But she ate it straight from the fridge, cold, right on top of salads or on its own with a bit of olive oil. After a few weeks, she came in to see me, frustrated. "I don't understand," she said. "I'm eating healthier than ever, but I'm always bloated. I feel full all the time and not in a good way." We talked through her meals, and when I asked about her vegetables, she proudly described her prep routine. That's when I gently explained that while the food itself was great, her digestive system probably needed a little help with the breakdown process, and reheating was the missing step. Charlotte started gently reheating her veggies in a skillet with a splash of water or broth. Nothing fancy, just enough to warm them through and soften them. She told me a week later she felt like someone took the pressure out of my belly. Her energy was better too, because she wasn't weighed down by the discomfort anymore. And there's also Joseph, 76, from Portland. He was eating cold cauliflower from the night before and thought it was helping his blood sugar, but he kept having cramping in the evenings. Once he started warming it up before eating, the cramps disappeared. "It's such a small thing," he told me, but wow, it made a difference. What often helps is simply taking the extra moment to reheat vegetables that have been sitting in the fridge. A few minutes in a pan, steamer, or microwave, just until they're warm and soft again, can completely change how your body receives them. Don't worry about overcooking. In this case, softer is better. It's easier on your digestion and still gives you all the benefits. And if chewing is a concern, warming the veggies also makes them easier on your teeth and jaw. It's a win all around. More comfort, less gas, better absorption. Caring for your digestion isn't about avoiding good food. It's about preparing it in a way that your body now appreciates. Reheating your broccoli and cauliflower is a quiet way of saying to yourself, "I matter enough to make this easier." And you do. You matter, your comfort matters, and your health deserves these little adjustments that bring big relief. Let's take a closer look at something hearty and wholesome: beans. Whether it's black beans, kidney beans, lentils, or chickpeas, these foods are packed with fiber, protein, and minerals that are especially beneficial as we age. But here's the catch. Eating them cold, straight from the fridge or a can, can lead to real digestive discomfort for many older adults. And that's something not a lot of people talk about. You see, beans contain certain complex sugars and resistant starches that are harder for the body to break down. When you're young, your digestive system is more robust and efficient. So, You might not even notice a problem, but as we get older, digestion slows, and your gut may not have enough of the enzymes or strength to handle these tough carbohydrates, especially when the beans are cold or only lightly warmed. What that means in practice is bloating, gassiness, stomach cramps, or just a general heavy feeling after meals. Some folks even start avoiding beans altogether because they think they can't tolerate them. But the truth is, your body probably just needs them served a little differently, warm, softened, and easier to digest. Tom, 70, from Reno, Nevada, came to me with exactly this issue. He was eating healthy, doing everything by the book. One of his go-to lunches was a salad with canned chickpeas straight out of the tin. He'd rinse them, throw them on top, add a little oil and vinegar, and every afternoon he'd feel bloated and tired. I thought maybe it was the dressing, he said, or maybe I just can't eat beans anymore. We talked it through, and I asked how he was preparing the beans. When he said he never heated them, I smiled and told him that might be the key. I explained how warming up canned or pre-cooked beans helps break down those hard-to-digest starches and sugars, making them gentler on the stomach and easier to process. Tom was skeptical, but he gave it a try. He started heating his chickpeas in a pan with a little olive oil and water before adding them to his lunch. Within a few days, the bloating was gone. "It's like my stomach sighed with relief," he joked. "I didn't even realize how uncomfortable I'd gotten used to feeling." Then there was Rose, 82, from Minneapolis. She used to eat cold black bean soup that she stored in the fridge. Every time she'd get heartburn and chalk it up to aging. Once she switched to reheating it fully on the stove until piping hot, that burning sensation stopped completely. "I thought it was just part of getting older," she said, "but it was just a cold spoonful too many." One of the easiest ways to help your body handle beans better is to heat them all the way through before eating. Even if they're from a can, give them a few minutes in a pan with a splash of water or broth. If you're using a microwave, stir them midway and check that they're hot throughout, not just warm on top. This tiny step can make a big difference. Warm beans are easier to chew, easier to digest, and much more comfortable for your gut. You still get all the fiber and nutrition, just without the heavy price of gas and bloating. Sometimes taking care of yourself means going a little slower. In the kitchen, just enough to turn something okay into something truly nourishing. Reheating your beans is a simple, loving gesture to your digestive system. You're not giving something up. You're giving your body a better chance to feel good, stay light, and move through the day with comfort and ease. And that truly is something worth the extra minute. Let's wrap up with something many of you probably enjoy for breakfast: oatmeal or other hot cereals. They're easy to make, gentle on the stomach, and they carry a sense of warmth and routine. But when that bowl of oatmeal sits too long and gets cold, or when it's eaten straight from the fridge the next morning, your body might not appreciate it as much as you think. Reheating it properly is more important than it seems, especially as we age. Here's why. When oatmeal cools down and firms up, the starches in it change their structure. Cold or clumpy oatmeal can be more difficult to digest, especially for a slower or more sensitive digestive system. That might mean bloating, heaviness, or just that sluggish, full feeling that hangs around too long. And if you're like many older adults, mornings already come with stiffness, fatigue, or slower energy, and you don't need food making that worse. There's also something deeply comforting about eating something warm first thing in the morning. It wakes up your body gently, helps circulation, soothes your stomach, and starts your day with a sense of calm. Cold food, on the other hand, can be jarring. Your body has to work harder to process it, especially on an empty stomach. Linda, 69, from Fort Myers, Florida, had been preparing her oatmeal the night before, letting it soak overnight and grabbing it straight from the fridge in the morning. "It saves time," she told me, and I thought it was healthier that way. But after a few weeks, she started feeling bloated by noon and couldn't figure out why. She blamed stress, weather, even her medications. When I asked her about breakfast and she described the cold oats, I gently suggested she try warming them up instead. "Even just a minute in the microwave with a splash of milk," I said. "Let your body ease into the day." Linda gave it a try. The next time we talked, she smiled and said, "I didn't know breakfast could feel so good." Her stomach felt lighter and her energy held up longer into the afternoon. She even said it made her mornings feel calmer. Another gentleman I knew, James, 83, from Charleston, used to eat cold grits that he stored in the fridge for convenience. He said he didn't want to bother reheating them, but he always felt a tightness in his belly after breakfast. When he started taking the time to warm them up slowly on the stove with a little butter and water, that discomfort disappeared. "It is such a small change," he told me, "but it made my whole morning better. If you prepare your hot cereal ahead of time, just take a minute to warm it up. Add a bit of water, milk or broth to loosen it, and heat until it's soft and steaming. Whether it's oatmeal, grits or cream of wheat, warm food wakes up the gut gently. It's easier to chew, easier to digest, and more comforting all around. If you're in a rush, even a quick heat in the microwave can do the trick. Just be sure to stir and heat evenly so it's warm through and through, not hot on top and cold underneath. Your mornings matter, and how you begin your day sets the tone for everything that follows. A warm breakfast isn't just about digestion. It's about care, ritual, and giving your body the gentle start it deserves. You've earned peaceful mornings. Let that first meal be a hug from the inside out. You're worthy of that kind of kindness. Let me know in the comments which of these tips was new or especially helpful for you. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss an update. And remember, you are not alone. You are wise, you matter. And self-care begins with small, warm choices.